to alleviate the problem that you raise.
It's, by the way, it always gets me that they talk about modern medicine as being hurting evolution, but no one ever talks about, no, not doctors, but lawyers who are clearly hurting evolution.
Number 2.
First of all, I love your Converses.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm currently in high school and I do study chemistry and physics, and I have noticed a lot there's been a decrease in the amount of science culture within science teachers, as in they don't encourage students to take up science because they feel that their marks won't be very good or it won't help them get into university. And I want to know, how can teachers overcome that, and how can teachers get students into science, and how can they overcome that marks problem, and why won't they, where has the culture gone in science teachers?
That's a very good question. I mean, I'm not as familiar in Australia with the situation. As bad as it is here, I'm sure it's worse in the United States. But it's a fascinating statistic. It's a depressing statistic in the United States, at least, that when it comes to middle school, for example, approximately 90% of middle school science teachers have no training in science. And what that means is that they're uncomfortable with the science. And that means two things. First of all, I've experienced it when my own daughter was young. That lack of comfort gets transferred to the students. The teacher is uncomfortable in the material, and the students get the sense that the material should be uncomfortable. But more than that, it means that they teach to the curriculum, which is a set of facts. And the one thing I'm sure we both agree is that if I don't care, I assume when kids get to university, they know nothing. It's a good approximation. But I don't care. The facts are important. We tend to teach physics students as if they're all going to be clones, as if they're all going to become physicists, and somehow knowing how something goes down an inclined plane is important. It isn't. It's boring. But what we want to teach is the process of how to solve problems. But if you're not comfortable with science, you can't teach that process, and you can't go outside the curriculum, which is even worse, because all kids are born to be scientists. We all ask those questions. But most of people don't realize the questions that they have are scientific ones. The questions we just talked about in this book, the wonderful questions here, are questions that everyone's asked, but we don't talk about them in school. And I think one of the reasons is that the teachers aren't comfortable leaving the curriculum. So what we have to do is do a better job of training teachers. I think the biggest problem of science education is unfortunately, teachers. But there's a good reason for that. We don't, at least in my country, we don't adequately pay science teachers enough.
That's right.
If you've got a training in science, you can get a much better job, much more money, doing something else than being a teacher. And so in my own university, we're actually trying to help that, at least by having courses where we actually train science teachers by asking these fundamental questions and pointing out and getting people. Richard actually came to my university and we filmed a little sequence where we'll have a conversation for an online course for teachers. But that teacher training, I think, is important, and then valuing teachers by paying them more, first of all, but also doing something that's not very popular, at least, again, in my country, is saying maybe market economics has to work, and we have to maybe pay science teachers a little bit more, not because science is more valuable than English, because it certainly isn't, but it's the way to keep people from, bring scientists back in because they have other options. It happens in universities, for better or worse. I get paid more than my